Hi, it's Dwyer. It is June 27th, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, the fight of the weekend, and the weekend has a few, in my opinion, is Kid Austin, right? Floyd Schofield versus Tevin Farmer. Let's do something many won't do. Let's actually criticize Kid Austin, right? This fight's very important to me because I'm trying to figure him out, right? Is he a fastball pitcher? Someone who has a style that he can impose on an opponent, but who might have parts of his game that are underdeveloped? Or is he a guy who early in his career has decided, look, why keep the fans waiting? I'm going to be front foot heavy. I'm going to emphasize offense. I'm going to channel my best Aaron Pryor. And I'm going to make a name for myself by overpowering opponents. Let's talk about the concerns. I need for people to look closely at Tevin Farmer. This is a guy who fought supposed bad man Ray Moritella, and he went the distance with him. Then he fought supposed bad man, another unbeaten fighter, William Zepeda. We'll find out a lot about Zepeda when he fights Shakur Stevenson. And of course, two fights, both close, both go the distance. In other words, Tevin Farmer, while he has been stopped in the past, he's the kind of cagey vet who, if you're predictable, if you're too front foot heavy, if you're too hook heavy, if you're not defensively blessed, Farmer is a guy who can survive against you. Farmer is a guy who can make the fight so close that the Zepeda folks understood they had to have a rematch with him. Now let's talk about Kid Austin, and let's be blunt. I'm going to tell you why I have concerns about him. Right? Let's face it, folks. You know where his head's going to be, don't you? Right? He's had a couple of fights where he got head-butted and it opened up cuts on him because I believe his opponents knew where his head was going to be. Kid Austin, unbeaten, right? Kid Austin, you know, is going to be on his front foot, right? In my opinion, I haven't seen the back foot, the mobile jab, the guy who can have you follow him, who then leads you into traps and punches. In fact, the most damning thing I can say about Kid Austin, and he's young, he's energetic, but understand he really can't have slow rounds, right? I like technician type guys. Guys who, you know, are methodically beating you, even when there's not a lot of action. So I like guys who can take a step back from the pocket from time to time, right? Can hit you with a jab, have you thinking about whether it's wise to even open up in terms of volume, right? Because you understand the guy's hitting you with the jab, there's more there. You're fighting a layered fighter, a bit of an onion, right? The guy is keeping you in place, right? Hamza Shiraz comes to mind, right? A guy who has the jab, is keeping you outside. The measured rounds go to him, right? You have to change the dynamic of the fight. Don't get me wrong. Guys like this have power, right? But they understand too, they can control the pacing of the fight without turning it into a brawl. Now correct me in the comment section, because I know Kid Austin is one of the biggest prospects in boxing, right? I'll concede openly here before I say another word. He's one of boxing's best body punchers, right? But I believe, I know, Kid Austin's head is going to be, let me see if I can angle it for the camera, right here. He's going to be on his front foot when he's throwing body shots. And he throws body shots with both hands, right? You know he's going to be leaning over the pocket, don't you? Isn't it fair to call him a pocket-centric fighter? So he's going to come, his head's going to be here. If I'm a savvy vet and I want to use my head to headbutt him, I don't have to go looking for his head. I'm not fighting Vitaly Klitschko, who's leaning backward, right? I don't have to go through the pocket, then go try to find the guy to hit him in the head, right? No, I know with Kid Austin, his head's going to be right here. Let me go one step further. He's a great body puncher. My goodness, is he reckless, right? While he's bent over the pocket, while his head's right here, he'll open up on a guy's body with both hands. Folks, this is the opposite of Canelo. Understand, Canelo's a great body puncher, right? But Canelo always has his head hidden. Where exactly is Canelo's head? It's not here all the time, right? Canelo has his head tucked. He has his shoulders high, right? He's leaning a little bit away. You throw on Canelo, you have to try to find his head. You're not going to find his chin. It's not easy to headbutt Canelo, right? It's easy to headbutt Kid Austin. He's too aggressive. He's too predictable. He's too front foot. Now he overwhelms fighters, right? He brings his energy. They back up. They find themselves pinned against the ropes. He's throwing predominantly hooks, right, folks? That's the problem too. The punch sequence, right? Look at Austin highlight films online here. You're going to see that he's throwing predominantly hooks. Now, we haven't seen the slick fighter. We're about to. But we haven't seen the slick fighter against him who can take a step forward and tie him up, who can pick a hand. Austin has one of the sport's best left hooks. I don't dispute that, whether it's to the body or whether it's up top. He's extremely two-handed. But understand, the guys who know how to clinch are going to know Austin's too close to them, right? When Austin steps forward, a KG vet is going to pick a side and then say, okay, let me neutralize his right hand, or if they know Austin, let me neutralize his left hand, let me smother his left hand, right? Let me tie him up. Let me keep him turning. That's the other problem I have with Austin, too. He's too parallel to you. Right? So I'm seeing a guy who I'm not sure can beat Gervonta Davis. Right? Understand, Gervonta Davis has a jab, can fight low, is a southpaw, would be able to stand there and, as Austin predictably, and that's the problem, predictably comes in the pocket, is leaning forward. Right, folks? I even know where Austin's chin is. Right? He's in the pocket. He's leaning forward. I know his game's not to outpoint me on his back foot. In fact, I'll go further. I don't think he can outpoint an elite fighter on his back foot to win a round. Right? So let's just say I get the feeling that Austin coming inside can be grabbed. Right? I feel the same problems that Joe Frazier had against fighters who could push him away. George Foreman. I believe Austin might have, right? A guy who can fight longer. A guy who has a jab will be able to find Austin's head with it. Right? If you can push Austin out of the pocket and hit him on the way in, because, folks, he'll be on the way in, you can have success. Let me point out that William Zepeda hit the canvas against Tevin Farmer, because Zepeda, and I think Zepeda's underrated, but Zepeda is also an all-action fighter. Right? There are no slow rounds with William Zepeda. You know he's going to come inside. You know he's going to be throwing punches. Austin is a combination puncher. Let's compare him to one of the great combination punchers, Ray Leonard. Right? Understand, Ray had legs on him that Austin doesn't have. Austin has a lot of energy. But, you know, Ray was a guy who could actually move away from you. Right? There are rounds where Marvin Hagler is frustrated, coming forward, trying to find Ray Leonard. Right? Ray, you know, closer to the Ali era, could dance in the ring. Right? Ray understood, even though he's a combination puncher, that he needed to establish spacing at times. Now, Austin, right, doesn't have that ability to just dance around the ring. Right? You know he's going to come hunting you, and you know after hunting you, he's then going to be trying to empty the gun in the pocket. Right, folks? That's going to cost him against some fighters. Right? You know, if you're always front foot, some fighters going to look on film. A Terence Crawford. Crawford obviously is fighting at 165. He's not fighting at 135, right? Crawford hasn't been 135 for years. But a guy like Terence Crawford, who can adapt his style to beat yours, is going to look on film, and he's going to see that Kid Austin is too front foot heavy. Kid Austin is too predictable at times. Lennox Lewis, was fighting Razor Ruddock. At the time, Ruddock had a lot of currency because Ruddock had fought Mike Tyson and looked good at times against Mike Tyson. So he's fighting Lennox Lewis. And Emmanuel Stewart, who was with Lewis at the time, said to Lewis that Ruddock had a punch pattern where he would come inside, he would touch you up top, then he would lean down and hit you to the body. Right? So you know what happened. Lennox Lewis waited. Lewis is still with us. The boxing media can talk with him. Lewis waited until Ruddock came, big puncher, but then Ruddock decided to go to Lewis's body, so he hit him up top, then he leaned forward to hit him in the body, just like Kid Austin does. And understand, Austin's body attack, it's, two-handed to the body. He needs to look at Terence Crawford, who I just mentioned, against Avanesian. How Crawford is mixing in body shots with shots up top. Because you cannot, at the top level of a division, be in the pocket and then be throwing body shots with both hands. What's protecting your head? Right? Austin has gotten by on reflexes. Right? He's going to have to change the technique. He's going to have to tighten up the technique. So before a round happens in this Tevin Farmer fight, people need to understand that Farmer has probably just faced two bigger punchers than Kid Austin. Right? Ray Morataya and William Zepeda probably hit harder than Kid Austin. Right? I'm just keeping it real with you. Right? Not only that, both of those guys can be hyper aggressive on their front feet. Right? Just understand that Tevin Farmer has just dealt with, in his last 3 fights, guys who are hyper aggressive and crashing the pocket. Right? I would argue that both Morataya and Zepeda are better defensively than Kid Austin. Right? So Farmer is going to know where to find Kid Austin. Farmer knows how to deal with a guy who predictably is on his front foot. Now, boxing's a young man's game. Farmer is older. Farmer has lost before. Farmer has gotten stopped before. Right? But, folks, he hasn't gotten stopped recently. And if I had to pick a young fighter who looks like he's going to be vulnerable, I believe Kid Austin would fall in that category. I'm not predicting that Farmer beats Kid Austin. But what I am predicting is that's going to be a difficult fight. I don't see Austin walking through him. Right? Let me say, too, that, you look at Austin. Austin says his favorite fighter is Sugar Ray Robinson. Right? But yet, Austin, in fight after fight, in my eyes, makes the same mistake that Robinson made against Rocky Graziano. Right? Understand, Robinson gets decked in that fight. Just food for thought. He gets off the canvas. He wins the fight. But that's a fight where he got a little full of himself and was too in the pocket. Right? As I look at Austin, he's going to have to learn a whole part of the game where he can win rounds without diving in the pocket, where he can win rounds without throwing combination after combination. where, as he backs up, he's defensively ready. He got dropped in a fight. Right? The other guy comes in and throws a left hook and hits him right behind the ear, and you're looking at his defense and you realize this guy doesn't have a structured defense. Now, I'm being critical because, of course, everyone's your best friend when times are good. Everyone's your best friend when you're unbeaten. Right? But this guy now, is thinking about fighting, in fact, had signed to fight Shakur Stevenson. Right? He's thinking about fighting Gervonta Davis. If he goes up to 140, if he's in the ring with Richardson Hitchens and he can't get by Hitchens' jab, what's he going to do? Especially if he doesn't have enough of a back foot to come up with some idea other than feinting to get inside. Right? So let's watch this Tevin Farmer fight. I myself am curious as to how it turns out. I want to see how good the kid looks. Let me point out too, and I know this is counterintuitive, for Kid Austin, he would be better served if the fight actually goes a few rounds. Right? I feel the same way about Christian and Billy, who's won some fights incredibly early. Right? He's not going to learn a lot. If he comes in, starts winging these hooks, catches Farmer, takes him out in 6 minutes or less, right? If it's an early KO, okay, great, he gets the win. The question is, did he get the learning opportunity? Right? I want to see how he copes with Farmer being able to move. Farmer not allowing himself to get pinned over by the ropes. Southpaws have given Austin some trouble. Right? You heard me talk about how a guy clipped him with a left hook and dropped him. Right? Another southpaw went the distance with him. Farmer's a southpaw. I'm curious to see whether Farmer can time him and drop him like Farmer timed and dropped William Zepeda. Right? So I'm hoping, if I were in Austin's quarter, don't get me wrong, if you're a gambler and you bet on a first round knockout or a second round knockout, that's what you want. Right? But if you're interested in a guy's career, I'm actually hoping Austin goes a few rounds here. I'm not saying prolong the fight, right? If the punch is there, take it. But my point is simply, if, Farmer's making it tough and the fight goes a few rounds, I'm hoping that Austin slowly realizes, and it's tough because boxing is a familial sport. Right? Kid Austin's trainer is his dad. Right? He's been hearing a certain voice his entire career. But like Ricky Hatton had to move off his trainer, like Lennox Lewis had to move off his trainer, or at least invite other voices. Right? I'm telling you, Austin needs to figure out that there's something called a back foot. Austin needs to figure out that spacing, he won't be able to control spacing by just having youthful energy and head feints. That if other fighters know his head is going to be right here, they'll have something for that head. Right? Something more than a headbutt. Right? Let's just say this is a young fighter who is still learning, in my opinion. I don't believe he's ready to take over the world. I know Jack Catterall has moved up to 147. But understand the problem fighting Jack Catterall poses. You jump in the pocket, and while he's standing in the pocket, you can't find his head. Right? He's a cagey southpaw. He has his head hidden behind his shoulder. He's leaning away. And, of course, Catterall, southpaw, has a very lethal counter left hand. Right? I don't believe Kid Austin is ready for that level of opponent. A guy who is going to know he's going to come in the pocket, is going to be waiting for him, is going to know he's relying on reflexes for defense, is going to know that his head's open for headbutts or straight lefts. Right? So pay close attention to this fight. Let me say this too. Tevin Farmer's been throwing down some great performances, folks. Right? Both Zepeda fights, very close. Right? Very close. Both of them. Right? The Ray Morataya fight, you know, you thought he was just going to sail through his career dominating opponents. That fight was a chess match. Right? Sometimes in the sport you get late bloomers. Right? I would argue that Tevin Farmer has a better shot on Gervonta Davis than does Kid Austin, just from a styles perspective, one man's opinion. Right? On a weekend where we have other fights, including a fight involving a 5-year heavyweight champ from the past, including a fight involving a guy who fought Canelo at a catch weight and went the distance with him. Right? That's who Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is. Right? And of course, he's fighting Jake Paul. Right? On that weekend. I'm just telling you, style-wise, one man's opinion. This Kid Austin, Tevin Farmer fight is a 5-star matchup. Right? I'm positive there are a lot of fans of Kid Austin who believe he's the future, who are nervous about this fight. They should be. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this video. Let's make this interactive. If you feel that I've been unfair to Kid Austin, that we don't know that his head's going to be right here, right? That he's more elusive than that, right? That there's more bob and weave, right? You know, I consider myself as having been unfair to Joe Frazier and mentioning him and talking about Kid Austin, because with Joe, he had a lot of bob and weave. I don't see the bob and weave with Kid Austin, right? Also, combinations are great, but they come with a responsibility, right? Andy Ruiz, incredibly fast hands, combination puncher, but he's been caught, he's been dropped in fights, right? When both of your hands are being used for offense, what's being used for defense? If you're facing a counterpuncher, if I'm facing a pot shotter, a Floyd Mayweather, he's going to time me. So if I come in and he knows, okay, two-handed attack to the body, right? Left, right. He's going to say, okay, great. At the start of me throwing to the body when I'm defenseless, Mayweather's going to come down Main Street with his own left hook or something, right? So, you know, let's just say this looks like a young guy learning the sport, right? That might reveal itself in this Tevin Farmer fight, because Farmer's cagey. Those are my thoughts. I look forward to yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.